Hey guys, Lytane here, and it's about time that I talked about the angriest person in all of video game history, Kratos. His anger has become an icon and has defined the games that he is in, and he's been in quite a few games actually, with the 7th installment coming later this week. So I thought I would take a look back at the original game, God of War, and see if it's worth it. God of War was made by Santa Monica Studios and was released in 2005 as a PlayStation 2 exclusive. In this game you play as Kratos, a Spartan from ancient Greek times with an anger problem. Kratos was a commander of an army and one of the best fighters and killers in all of the known world, but even the best must suffer defeat. When that happened, Kratos begged Ares to grant him the power to defeat his enemies, and his wish was granted. Ares granted him renewed strength as well as the Blades of Chaos, these incredible weapons that are bound to Kratos forever, and he can use them and wield them in ways that no other mortal can because he's just so darn cool. But there was also a catch. Kratos had to serve Ares and fight the battles that his god wanted. But Ares realized that Kratos has a very big weakness: the love of his family. Now, I don't want to spoil it here, but needless to say, Kratos was not happy with the God of War and vowed his revenge, but still bound by his deal. When Ares starts a siege on Athens because he hates Athena, because that's her city, she puts together a plan to stop him. With their feud at a boiling point and him actively trying to kill all of her followers, she calls upon Kratos to help her and get his own revenge. She tells him of a way to become more powerful and that he might be able to kill Ares with the help of Pandora's box. This leads him on an epic quest where he will fight, and there will be blood, gore, and death as we fight this war against a god. God of War is a hack and slash game, meaning that you have to press certain buttons in a certain order in order to achieve combos. You have heavy attacks and light attacks and quick attacks and dodges and all that kind of stuff that if you push certain commands, you pull off certain different moves. Now, if you're anything like me, you'll probably memorize at least 2 combos in the game and just stick with those 2 for the majority of the game. The fighting is what you'll be doing for the majority of the game, though there is another area, the puzzle platforming sections, where Kratos handles a little bit heavy in my opinion. Controlling him during these sections, you have a double jump and you have quite a bit of mobility, but he's a little bit slow and a little bit heavy, so some of these sections can be a little bit hard to get through, especially the ones where you have to balance. A lot of people have difficulty with those. For the most part, these levels are fairly open and they all handle in a very similar way. You'll be doing some exploration before you get into a fight, and then you do some more exploration before you get into another fight, and then you have a puzzle to solve as well, and you'll be doing this all the time throughout the entire game. During the exploration side of things, you can go off the beaten path in order to find some hidden collectibles. Doing so will make yourself stronger before the end of the game, so it's actually really rewarding. The sense of progression in this game is fairly consistent because as you're going through, you'll be getting yourself stronger, especially if you're going off the beaten path. Then you fight harder enemies and eventually you get harder puzzles. The sense of progression is actually really good. Though, just like all hack and slash games, it can get a little repetitive. The combat is similar from start to finish, but you do learn new moves, combos, and specials as the game goes on, even getting a new weapon, which keeps it interesting enough, though essentially the game plays fairly similar. Because of this, I can see a lot of people becoming bored with the combat, and I know I would be at times as well, especially when you fight multiple bad guys with lots of health and you have to do it over and over again. It can become a bit of a chore. In order to mitigate this feeling though, the developers added a very basic leveling up system. Killing enemies yields red souls that you can spend on upgrades to your weapons and special moves, including my favorite, Poseidon's Rage. That is so overpowered, it gets your combo so incredibly high, it's so much fun. This sense of progression is also handled very well. You are learning these new moves, spells, and upgrading your health and magic by finding those hidden items so you feel stronger as the game goes on. But the sense of progression doesn't stop there. There are also new monsters monsters that you have to fight and new variants of monsters that you've already fought, which makes them stronger and harder. And they keep coming for you as well, and you have to learn how to kill each one of them. That's right, you have to learn how to kill them. Most of these enemies have some kind of a weakness to them or a way in order to kill them faster. Like with the Minotaurs, you can actually kill them fairly quickly if you get the button prompt and you successfully do it. So the majority of this game feels like some kind of puzzle, and that mixed in with the puzzle elements of the world, it actually feels very natural as you're figuring out how to kill bad guys and then you're figuring out how to get through the world. The puzzles for the most part aren't too challenging. A lot of them require pushing blocks either to get to a new area or to open up something, or even manipulating blocks in order to turn them into something different. As the game goes on, you do get different kinds of puzzles and different kinds of platforming puzzles, like especially when you're going through the Pandora's Temple. There are so many different types of puzzles in there. Because of this, it keeps the game fairly fresh. You're not getting too bogged down by these fights, and then when you get to do something new and original in terms of a puzzle, it can be a welcoming thing because you're just like pressing the buttons, pressing the same combo if you're like me, and doing these things actually like wakes up your brain just that little bit. With that sense of always having to figure something out, let's talk about the boss battles. Now, the majority of bosses in the history of gaming require you to either hit a bad guy enough times to kill it. You have to sometimes figure out some kind of pattern or something like that, and then you just hit them enough times and they will go down and die. But God of War tries something a little bit different, and they did it in quite a spectacular way. Let's go into a brief history of gaming. There was a game called Dragon's Lair, which had a player pressing specific buttons at the right time in order to win. It didn't have a name or a genre until over a decade later when a game called, I think it's called Shenmue or Shenmue, I'm not quite sure, called it a quick time event, or QTE. This allows a developer to show a cutscene to a player or something contextual that should the player press the right button at the right time, the cutscene continues and they pull off a special move. In the mid-2000s, these were starting to become more popular before it went a little bit too far and now most people don't like them. The QTEs in God of War serve both purposes, some with cutscenes, and all of the bosses have moments when the developers wanted you to do something cool, like at the very start of the game when you are fighting the Hydra. Instead of just hitting it until it dies, you have to weaken it, then destroy parts of the boat that you're on before you start the QTE, which has you pressing the right buttons in order to impale the head on the mast, which is so much fun and it's so cool. A lot of enemies have this as well, which are more about instantly killing the foes by succeeding in the event. These cinematic events are what make God of War really shine, because you feel like a badass when you complete them. Honestly, there is so much spectacle here. Nearly everything that people remember about these games comes from these points, doing something amazing in order to kill a boss. And because of the fact that you're pressing the buttons when this is happening, it makes it feel that much more rewarding. You're not just watching a cutscene of Kratos doing something cool, you are doing it yourself. Even though you're only pressing buttons essentially, it's still more rewarding. Graphically, the game looks really impressive. There are so many nice areas to look at and they're so varied throughout the game. You can tell that the developers really pushed the PlayStation 2 to its absolute limits in order to show these things. Kratos himself is so fluid. Every time you push a button and you're doing one of his moves, he just flows, and that is a really nice feeling when you're playing this game. Doing any combo and giving you such freedom when you're doing these is so nice. Then you have the cutscenes and the quick time events, which look especially good because they put so much effort into these because they knew that they would be the most memorable parts of the game. And oh my god, I can't stress enough how nice this game looks. But There is also a version on the PlayStation 3, which was a HD remaster of the game, so honestly, it looks even better. They did their normal HD upgrade, turning it from a PlayStation 2 to a PlayStation 3 game, upgrading the textures and the models and all that kind of stuff, which makes it look even better. So the PlayStation 3 version is probably the definitive version of the game. Then we have the score for the game. If you watch my top 11 favorite songs list, then you will know that the God of War song was actually an honorary mention because, oh my god, is it incredible. This, I think it's Gregorian chant or something, I don't even know, but oh my god, is it powerful, and it makes you feel really cool. It's just this big song that just, oh, it's hard to describe, you just have to listen to it. But the one word that I will definitely say to describe it is epic. Epic is honestly the best word to describe this game. The story of finding out how to kill a god and being aided by the other gods is epic. The tragic backstory of Kratos is epic. The fighting style of Kratos is epic. The QuickTime event results in something epic happening. Being the first game in the series though, it's actually more tame than the later entries, but that is not a detriment to the game at all. In my opinion, God of War is absolutely worth it. It is epic on so many levels. This game is so much fun to play. Whether you're in combat destroying the foes or you're going through the different levels and how well designed they are, you will be having fun throughout the entire game, and that is very important because you're doing these amazing things during these QuickTime events which are so memorable after the fact because you're just doing these crazy things to these bad guys. You'll be walking away going, man, I feel like a real badass. And Kratos is a badass. As a character, he's really angry for the most of the game, but he is also funny. There is a lot of humor in this game, and I really enjoy that. Now, the game itself is not perfect. There are some repetition, especially with the combat, which can make it feel like a little bit of a chore, especially towards the mid and end of the game where the bad guys get tougher and you don't really get strong enough to handle those kinds of things. It just takes longer to beat the same bad guys that you've already fought at the beginning, which is a bit of a downside. Some of the puzzles as well are also fairly boring or easy to solve or just not very fun. Then there are some platforming sections where you have to balance on beams whilst you're dodging enemies and hazards, and they can be fairly tough. A lot of people find these parts really hard. Personally, I didn't find it all that hard, but I've seen online a lot of people stop playing at these parts because they just can't get through them, and that's bad. If you have such a fun game and then people don't want to finish it because they can't get past a single section. But honestly, this game is just so much fun. That's the main thing. If I go into a game and I'm having fun, then it's definitely worth it, and that's why this game is worth it. That's why this game has had so many sequels since, because this game has just launched an amazing thing. Honestly, go out and play it. The first game is honestly very, very good. So guys, tell me what you thought about God of War. Did you like it? Did you hate it? Which game in the series is your absolute favorite? Which moments were the most memorable ones for you? I have so many fond memories of these games, especially Kratos, because he's so angry but lovable. Honestly, he's just one of my favorite characters in all of video game history. And don't forget to cycle and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye! Now, whilst you're exploring, you can go off the beaten path in order to find hidden collectibles. Cockroach just ran over my foot, and I jumped like a little girl.